You were already late. The sound of your shoes clacking against the office floor mixed with the hum of ringing phones, printers, and murmuring voices. You could feel your heart racing as you rushed past the glass walls of the John Corporation office, clutching your laptop like your life depended on it. Good morning. You breathed out, trying to smile as you passed by Mina from HR. She gave you that familiar sympathetic smile, the kind that said, "You are late again, but I'll pretend not to notice." You had spilled coffee on your white shirt earlier, missed the first bus, and almost forgot the file that was literally your only responsibility for the day. And now you had 10 minutes before the meeting with the CEO himself, John Jungkook. Even the thought of his name made your palms sweat. He was the kind of man who made everyone straighten their posture the moment he entered a room. Cold, quiet, always serious. You had seen him only a few times, but each time his gaze made you forget how to breathe properly. You tried to remind yourself that today was important. You were just a month old intern, and this was your first big meeting. You weren't leading anything, but you had helped prepare the presentation, meaning if anything went wrong, your name was also attached to it. Relax, Ryan. Your senior Damon said as he walked beside you. Just sit quietly, not when the client talks, and don't touch anything unless I tell you to, okay? You nodded quickly. Got it. Just don't touch anything. The meeting room was freezing. Or maybe that was just your nerves. You sat at the far end of the table, laptop ready, trying not to make any noise. When Jungkook entered, the entire room went silent. He didn't have to say a word. His presence alone was enough to command it. His suit was dark, his hair slightly pushed back, and his expression unreadable as always. You tried not to look at him, but of course your eyes betrayed you. He was scrolling through his tablet, focused and calm, and you couldn't help but think how someone could look so intimidating just sitting down. The meeting started smoothly. Tamin spoke confidently. The clients nodded, and you clicked through the slides as instructed. Everything seemed fine until one of the clients asked about the quarterly comparison data. Tamin gave you a small nod. You quickly opened your laptop to pull up the graph, but the screen that appeared on the projector wasn't the chart, it was your desktop. Your messy, completely unprofessional desktop. And right in the center was a sticky note that said, "Don't panic today or Jungkook will kill you." The silence that followed could have been sliced with a knife. Your entire body froze. You wanted to sink into the floor. You could feel everyone's eyes on you, including his. When you finally dared to glance at him, Jungkook was looking directly at the screen, jaw tight, his expression impossible to read. Sorry, just a second. You stammered, trying to close it, but your trembling fingers betrayed you, and instead of minimizing the window, you somehow closed the entire presentation. The screen went completely black. A quiet sigh left someone's mouth. You were sure it was yours. Damon leaned closer, whispering harshly, "Ryan, fix it. I'm trying." You whispered back, but your voice shook so badly it came out like a squeak. After what felt like hours, though it was probably 10 seconds, you finally got the slides back up. But the moment was gone. The room stayed painfully tense. Jungkook didn't say a word, but the look in his eyes said everything. "Continue," he said simply, turning back to his tablet. His tone was calm but cold enough to freeze your soul. You didn't move for the rest of the meeting. You sat there silently, trying not to cry, trying to breathe normally, wishing you could disappear. When it finally ended, you were the first to leave the room. The moment the door closed behind you, your body slumped against the wall. Your face burned. Nice going, Ryan. First big meeting, and you managed to show the CEO a note calling him a murderer. The rest of the day passed in a blur. You sat at your desk, typing nonsense, unable to focus. Everyone else seemed to forget about it quickly, but you couldn't. At lunch, Mina patted your back. "Don't worry, he didn't yell, right? He has yelled at people for less." You nodded weakly. "Yeah, he didn't yell." But somehow that made it worse. The silence, the disappointment. You stayed late that night trying to fix every small mistake you could find in the report, hoping it would make up for your blunder. The office was nearly empty when you finally got up to drop off the file on Tamin's desk. That's when you heard voices, low, calm, coming from the CEO's office. You slowed down without meaning to. You weren't trying to listen, but the glass walls carried sound easily. You heard Jungkook's voice, deep and even. Tell HR to handle it. I don't want to see her face again. You stopped dead in your tracks. Your heart dropped. The words hit harder than any yelling could have. You stood there for a moment, your throat tight, your chest heavy. You wanted to tell yourself that maybe he was talking about someone else, but deep down you knew he wasn't. He was talking about you. You turn around quietly, biting your lips so hard it almost hurt. The office lights flickered slightly, and your reflection on the glass looked small, helpless, but you refused to let tears fall. No, you whispered to yourself, voice trembling. I'll fix this. I'll prove I'm not that useless. Because you needed this job, and maybe because some part of you couldn't bear the idea of him remembering you only as the clumsy girl who embarrassed herself in front of him. You didn't know it then, but that moment, the one where you promised to fix things, was where everything between you and John Jungkook truly began. You barely slept that night. The words wouldn't leave your head. Tell HR to handle it. I don't want to see her face again. You repeated them over and over, hoping they would hurt less the next time. They didn't. By morning, your eyes were puffy and your hair looked like it had survived a storm. You almost considered skipping work altogether, but something inside you refused. You weren't a quitter, not after working so hard to get this job. You decided you would apologize properly. You didn't care how scary he was, you just needed him to know you never meant to embarrass him. When you reached the office, everyone was busy as usual, phones ringing, keyboards clacking, coffee cups clinking. You walked in quietly, clutching the small apology letter you had written last night, your palms already sweaty. Mina looked up from her desk. You okay? You look nervous. You forced a smile. I'm fine, just going to talk to Mr. John. Her eyes widened slightly. You sure about that? No, you weren't, not at all, but you still nodded. Yeah, I need to clear things up. You stood outside his office for almost a full minute, staring at the silver nameplate, John Jungkook, CEO. Your heart was pounding so hard you could hear it in your ears. You took a deep breath, whispered a pep talk under your breath. Okay, fine, you can do this. Just say sorry, don't trip, don't say anything stupid. Then you knocked. Come in, came his voice deep and calm. You opened the door slowly. He was sitting behind his desk, eyes focused on the screen in front of him. His suit was black again. Why was he always in black? And he looked just as intimidating as ever. When he finally looked up, his eyes landed on you. For a second, the entire world felt quiet. You bowed slightly. Good morning, Mr. John. He leaned back in his chair. Miss Wyan. His voice carried no emotion at all. What is it? You held your letter nervously, fingers twisting the corner of the paper. I just wanted to apologize for yesterday's incident. I didn't mean to mess up the meeting, sir. It was my mistake and you already made that clear. He said calmly, interrupting without raising his voice. You don't have to repeat it. You swallowed. I just wanted to say it won't happen again. I know I messed up and I'll work harder too. Do you know how much preparation goes into one meeting? He asked, eyes fixed on you. Yes, sir. And how much time it takes to build a client's trust? Yes, sir. And how quickly it can be ruined by one careless mistake? You hesitated, biting your lip. Yes, sir. He didn't say anything after that. He just looked at you, calm, collected, unreadable. The silence was so heavy that you felt every second stretched longer and longer. You bowed again, your voice soft, almost breaking. I'm sorry, truly, please, just give me one more chance. Something flickered in his eyes, barely there, but you caught it. He sighed quietly, turning his gaze back to the screen. You can go. That was it. No second chance, no forgiveness. Just those three words. You nodded, biting the inside of your cheek to stop yourself from tearing up. You turned quickly to leave, but as you did, your knee hit the sharp corner of the small table near his door. The pain shot through your leg instantly. You almost yelped, but somehow held it in, forcing a straight face. You mumbled, "Excuse me," and limped out of the room as normally as you could, pretending nothing happened. The door closed behind you. The moment you were out of his sight, you immediately bent down, holding your knee with both hands. "Ow, ow, that hurts." You whispered harshly, standing on one foot, your face scrunched up in pain. You didn't notice Jungkook watching you through the small glass panel on the door. His eyes softened slightly as he saw you hopping on one foot like a wounded rabbit, muttering to yourself about how life hated you. For the first time, a small, almost invisible smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. He shook his head, almost amused. "She is ridiculous," he thought, but that image of you trying to act fine even when it obviously hurt stayed in his mind for the rest of the day. You were halfway through eating your sandwich at your desk when Mina came rushing over. "Ryan, Mr. John wants to see you." Your hand froze mid-air. "What?" She nodded quickly. "He just told his secretary. Go now." Your heart dropped to your stomach. Oh no, maybe you had sent the wrong report again, or maybe he found out about the broken coffee machine this morning. Technically not your fault, but you were near it when it stopped working. You wiped your hands on a tissue, your throat suddenly dry. Okay, okay, I'm going. Meena patted your shoulder like you were walking to your own funeral. Good luck. You stood outside his office for a few seconds, taking a deep breath. "Relax," you whispered to yourself. "Maybe he just wants to ask something, or maybe he's finally firing me." Great pep talk, Ryan. You knocked softly. "Come in," came that low, steady voice. You opened the door. Jungkook was at his desk, sleeves rolled up, typing something. He looked up briefly, then gestured for you to come in. Close the door. Your heart did a backflip. You did as told, standing nervously in front of his desk, hands clasped tightly together. "You wanted to see me, sir?" He leaned back slightly in his chair, studying you. His gaze was calm, unreadable as always, but there was something different, less cold, maybe. "Yes," he said finally. "Sit." You hesitated before sitting down on the edge of the chair, trying to look composed. He slid a file toward you. "There's a draft report here. You'll review it and fix the numbers. I want accuracy down to the last decimal, understand?" Your eyes blinked rapidly. That was it. Work, not firing. Yes, sir." "You'll do it here," he added, and you froze. "Here?" He looked up from his tablet. "Is that a problem?" No, sir, not at all. I just didn't expect to." You trailed off, forcing a smile. "Work here." He ignored your awkwardness completely, returning to his screen. "You can use the desk near the window. Finish it by 5." You nodded quickly, picking up the file and moving toward the small side desk. The moment you sat down, you exhaled silently. "Okay, not fired. Good start." For the next hour, you typed quietly, sneaking occasional glances at him. He barely moved, focused, serious, completely absorbed in his work. His office smelled faintly of coffee and column, and the sound of his pen tapping occasionally filled the silence. You tried to stay focused, but your nerves wouldn't calm down. Every time he shifted in his chair, you froze. Every time he sighed, you thought you did something wrong. Finally, you gathered the courage to ask, Mr. John. He didn't look up. "Yes, I was wondering, should I keep the older sales data format or update it to the new one?" "Update it." "Okay, just making sure." He hummed softly in response. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable anymore. Strangely, you found it peaceful. Around lunch, his secretary Meena came in. Her eyes immediately widened when she saw you sitting there. "Sir, here's the. Oh, wine is here." Jungkook didn't look up. "She's working on the report." Meena blinked. "In your office?" "Yes." "Oh." Her tone had a hint of surprise. "Right, I'll come back later." She gave you a look as she left, a mix of what are you doing here and good luck surviving. You bit your lip, trying not to laugh. By the time the clock hit 5, your head was spinning with numbers, but the report was complete. You printed it and walked up to his desk, standing nervously. Here, sir, it's done. He took the file, scanning through it quietly. Finally, he looked up. Not bad. You blinked. Sorry? His lips twitched just slightly. I said not bad. You corrected the errors I noticed earlier. A small warmth spread through your chest. Thank you, sir. I tried my best. You should always try your best. He said simply, signing the bottom of the report, even when no one is watching. You nodded slowly, something about those words sticking with you. He placed the file aside and looked at you again. That will be all for today. You smiled softly. Thank you, Mr. John. As you turned to leave, your hand brushed against the corner of his desk. Papers slid slightly and one fell. You gasped, bending down quickly. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. It's fine, he said, voice calm. You straightened up, smiling awkwardly. I swear I'm not usually this clumsy. His brow raised slightly, eyes glinting. You say that every time. You froze. You remember that? He didn't answer, just looked down at his laptop again, but you caught the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his lips. When you left his office, Mina was waiting by her desk, pretending to organize files. You were in there all day, she whispered, eyes wide. Yeah. You laughed softly, rubbing the back of your neck. He made me work under his watch. She blinked. Wow, that's new. You smiled to yourself, glancing back at his glass door. Inside, Jungkook was still sitting there, but his gaze briefly lifted, just enough to catch you looking. He didn't look away immediately this time, and as you turned to leave, the corner of his mouth curved just slightly before he returned to his work. From that day on, his secretary wasn't the only one surprised because you started getting called into his office almost every day after that. And maybe you didn't know it yet, but John Jungkook had started noticing you, not as the clumsy girl who messed up a meeting, but as someone worth keeping close. You had lost count of how many times you had been called into Jungkook's office by now. It had become a quiet routine. Every morning after the first meeting, his secretary would appear by your desk with a polite smile. Mr. John wants you in his office. At first, everyone teased you about it. Then they stopped because even they started realizing John Jungkook didn't call anyone that often. You didn't understand it either. You just tried not to mess up again. That morning you walked in as usual, holding your laptop. Jungkook was by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly messy in a way that made him look softer. He didn't turn immediately but said, You are late. You froze. I'm sorry, sir. He looked over his shoulder, eyes glinting with amusement. By 2 minutes. You blinked. Oh, relax, he said, a small smirk playing on his lips. I'm not timing you. You exhaled quietly, sitting at your usual spot near the window. You sounded like you were. Maybe I was. He murmured, turning back to his papers. Your cheeks warmed instantly. For the next hour, you worked in comfortable silence. It still amazed you how different he was when it was just the two of you. He wasn't cold, just quiet, thoughtful. Sometimes you caught him watching you while you focused, as if trying to understand what went on in your head. At one point, you sighed, pushing your chair back. I can't make these numbers match. He glanced up. Show me. You stood beside him, explaining the issue, pointing to the data. He leaned closer, so close you could smell his column. You froze for a second, heartbeat skipping. He pointed at a line in the report. You misread this one. It's from the previous quarter. Oh, you blinked embarrassed. Right, that's why it didn't match. You tend to rush when you panic. He said casually. You looked at him surprised. You noticed that? He smirked faintly. I noticed everything. Your heart did a small somersault at that, but before you could think too much, he stood up and said, You have been working since morning. Take a break. You frowned. I'm fine. He was already walking toward the coffee machine in the corner of his office. You watched, eyes wide, as he rolled his sleeves a little higher and poured 2 cups. Wait, you are making coffee? He looked at you over his shoulder. Do you think I can't? No, sir, I mean, you stammered helplessly. He chuckled quietly. Relax. It's not illegal for CEOs to touch coffee machines. You bit your lip, trying not to smile. Still, you don't have to make it for me. I'm the one who told you to stay here and work. He said simply, handing you the cup. It's only fair. You took it carefully, fingers brushing his for half a second. The warmth of the cup didn't compare to the warmth that rushed to your face. Thank you. You said softly. He nodded, sitting back down. Don't thank me. It's instant coffee. You laughed before you could stop yourself. Still tastes better than the one from the cafeteria. He glanced at you, his expression unreadable, but you saw a ghost of a smile.